My name is David Blackbird McKenzie, and I have been trying to contact you regarding your car's extended warranty. My name is David Blackbird McKenzie, and I am secretly half snowman. My name is David, and I grew up in a cult. And no, if you haven't been around here before, it was not a Satanist cult, despite what the title of this video may suggest. I've actually met quite a few Satanists, and though there is a wide spectrum in there that not a lot of people are aware of, a lot of them are actually quite nice. There are many things that I could say, but because of the way my brain works, I try to say them all at once, and human voices don't work like that. So, just a little glimpse into why I'm making this particular video. There is a band called Streetlight Manifesto that I've been a little bit obsessed with recently, and they have a song called Mephisto's Cafe. And because we live in the age of algorithms, various music players keep trying to suggest to me many other bands that are technically a similar sound. Not all bands have the same vibe, even if they have similar sounds. Biggest thing that interests me about that band in particular, and no, I don't want to learn like gritty, horrible details, because celebrities inevitably have something going on like that. I used to be a huge fan of Neil Gaiman. Big reason that I've been playing just Streetlight Manifesto on repeat is because their lyrics tend to be more on the metaphysical, existential side rather than just screaming with trumpets in the background. So if you haven't heard that band, specifically their song Mephisto's Cafe, I encourage you to listen to it either now or during or after this video. I don't know, I can't tell you what to do. But because they chose to phrase a lot in this song, it's not about a cafe in general, but kind of the sense of, if you've never been told by someone that you're going to hell for just existing, kind of just bopping along, this may not resonate with you. And like there is a wide spectrum of Satanism, I'm not saying you have to go away, but if you are someone who has told others that they're going to hell because they are not particularly interested in what you have to say, this may not be for you. Long time ago, I bought this sign from a craft store that liked to do models of different products to give people ideas and inspiration, because apparently they couldn't do that on their own. So I bought this, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years ago. And I did take the price sticker off, sadly, but I think it was probably under $5. So someone in the store made this to say, hey, you can make one of these, kind of like their own Pinterest board shortcuts. And I was gonna make something else with it, so I was trying to basically scrape off the paint until I realized, well, I could just paint over it, and that was last week. So I'm going to show you how I do that. So if you come across something kind of similar, or you find this at a yard sale or whatever, as long as it's not raised, you can do the same thing I'm about to do. I am very fortunate to have a tablet monitor that it isn't one of the massive Wacom, like thousands of dollars ones, but kind of mid-range, and I can draw directly onto that and make it the same size as the finished product. What you can see here is when I then go and select exactly half, and it'll snap to half, then I know it'll fit on 8.5 by 11 pages, which means it'll print out. Like, there we have one, and then the other side. And I did make a mistake with this, which you'll see here, but then I fixed it, especially since it's digital. It doesn't really ruin anything. It just is more annoying to have to print it out twice. And the method that I'm using is using a product from Mod Podge where it'll transfer the photos, but it does recommend that if you have letters or numbers, something like that, then you do print it backwards, because it goes face down onto the surface that you're transferring onto. And there you can see that it does print out at the correct size, but I do have an issue with it afterwards. The program that I use is called Krita, K-R-I-T-A, and it's pretty easy to just mirror horizontally, I think it is. And instead of using just like a flat or satin acrylic paint, I like to use chalk paint because it gives more texture, but this one was really old, so it was also super thick, which is going to be a trend in a lot of my craft videos for the foreseeable future, because I'm trying to use what I have rather than, even if it's cheap, I would rather use what I have and see if that works instead of having to run out. Since it was super thick, I added a little bit more water, which made it actually thinner in some places, which wasn't ideal, but you can see the finished product. It at least has some texture, and it'll go up on a wall, probably in a high up space, so I'm not worried about looking like it came from an outlet store or anything. And I gotta apologize for this part because I think something got deleted, but I did want to come back to a lot of my experiences of why I resonate with the song, and most people sadly are not ready for a complete lurching shift in worldview of, oh, maybe just because something is popular and I don't see a problem with it, maybe there's something like really deeply wrong with it. Most people, even people who talk about keeping an eye out for certain things, or they're so punk and things that go along with that, they are not ready for paint. They are not ready for breaking everything down and building it back up. They want to play the game by their rules, and they don't want to make sure that they're not just parroting somebody else's rules, but they feel better about it this time. There is a truck in front of me with a huge wet paint sign and a guy hanging out of it, just very delicately placing all of these cones on top of the lines that you're not supposed to drive over. It's just, he's waiting, and then dropping. And I know a huge part of that, if not all of it, sounds like, honestly, red pill nonsense. If you forget the part about it applying to literally everyone, because that's where everything falls down, is if you have this great, profound philosophy of here's how to tell who's right and wrong, here's how to tell if you're doing the right thing, but it doesn't apply to yourself, it doesn't really apply to anyone. You are part of the problem. Yes, I do drive safely. I just take really long videos and then chop them up later. Thank you for asking. And you know, I've heard the expression, right thought, right action, something like that. But honestly, that doesn't really matter, because everybody is going to have different opinions on what the correct action is. And we all fight over the interpretations of different things. When really, from my experience, which is still going to be somewhat biased, as long as we're honest about things, then we actually have something to work with. Because then we're communicating effectively rather than insisting that things mean different things. A little sneak peek of some videos that are probably to come. We should have some pumpkins coming in if things go according to plan. Then, honestly, comes the biggest, most major issue that I have identified through my own experiences. Different groups wanting to take ownership of things, where it's just... I could give you an example. Where I live, the vast majority of the time, if you're off for Christmas, you get paid holiday. And people just think that's normal, and they get really upset if you talk about, oh, that's a religious holiday. That's giving favoritism towards a certain demographic, because people don't want to think about how they've been influenced over time, what they think is normal, because too much of the time normal is acceptable when they accept it. But if someone else's normal is not acceptable to them, then it's not normal. And I'm gonna go home and finish this sign. I wish I could film at places like these more often. Maybe that's my goal. People want to feel like they are in control, like they have certainty, and I understand that, but a lot of other things come along with that for the sake of reaching that goal, which is why I prefer gardening. The method of making this is really similar to some signs that I've made for my pop-up booth, which involves painting the sides black and the front white, and kind of creating a pseudo Art Deco feel. Obviously this isn't quite like that, but with the basis, I know I did something a little bit differently, but it's incentive for me to make more signs and use this method more, get it down pat. So, coming in with printed correctly this time, I did make the mistake in placement of just cutting out kind of the general shape of things, whereas the other signs that I mentioned, I did measure out the exact borders of everything, which is why I think I was more confident in slapping a whole lot more of the Mod Podge transfer on there. I found a video previously that I had made on a different platform for the signs, and there was so much on there. There was like an outline of the piece of paper in the Mod Podge down on the glass coffee table, so I think my mistake may have been just not enough, but it gave me enough of a guide where you can see how I fixed it later, kind of mixed it up, and got more creative than just the black and white. And doing this way does make it a little tricky trying to match things up, but because it didn't stick super well anyway, I still had to kind of bridge that gap with some manual drawing rather than the transfer. So it worked out just fine, but I would definitely think harder about how to match things up next time I do something this large. The signs that I mentioned were more like 4x4 or 5x7. Last time I let it dry for 24 hours, but I was a little impatient this time, which may have also contributed. But the premise with this product is that if you use the correct type of printer, then it'll actually leach itself into the product and then onto the surface that is on the other side. And then what you do is wet it, and then you can rub the paper part off, and it'll just leave behind the ink. Realizing something's going differently here. So I stopped on the M to see if it was just all the way through, or just I did something weird on the M side. As you can see, it did not get better, and I used less water, more from a spray bottle, less powerful than a sink. It's been a minute. And the biggest reason for that is I am preparing for a convention that I will probably be at on the day that you can see this. So as I showed you before, I didn't put enough of the Mod Podge on, or I didn't let it sit for long enough, even though I did it for a whole day. So I'm leaning more towards it wasn't quite saturated enough, or things weren't dried enough, something like that. But it does give me an opportunity to kind of mix it up a little bit and always be adaptable. So this stuff, I've gone back over, and since I drew it, I kind of have an intuition for where the lines were supposed to be. And for that, I will be filling in with some of this. I'm leaning toward red just because of the kind of theme of the entire thing, but I don't know. I'm gonna mix it up, like I said. So this wasn't a quick fix. There was something else that happened, but I do think it adds more to the vibes instead of just being some kind of fence post sign that you'd see next to a live, laugh, love, you know. And there it is, the biggest mistake I made on this particular project. But it ended up being okay. It ended up having me flexing some different muscles, and if you've seen my other work, you know I like glowy effects, if that gives you an idea of what I'm about to do. Yep, there it is. I didn't realize that the varnish would actually make the markers go, but because of the theme and I'm rolling with it, I'm adding a kind of like white acrylic filament on the inside, so it looks like the pieces broke, which they did, but more in an intentional way. Well, that turned out a little bit differently than I had anticipated, but I think it gets the point across. It's something that I would hang on the wall and maybe tidy up later with extra white paint or something, but if you haven't so far, I do encourage you to look up the song and have a listen. It's not a style that's for everybody, but it's something that I quite enjoy enough that I wanted something on my wall to kind of harken back to what the song is actually saying, and at least how I interpret things. I'm noticing the longer I take to do a video, the more likely I'm probably going to lose little pieces of it or some of the continuity unless I plan further ahead and plan for it to take a long time. But as I said, preparing for a convention that we're leaving for tomorrow. So next video will probably have some clips from that, because it's an area of this area that I really, really enjoy. And there will probably be lots of clips of me pointing at things going, ooh. Focus, 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 focus. Thank you for coming along in that project with me, and if you would like to see more, I quite enjoy a certain kind of quiet chaos, and in future videos I'll probably explain more of why when someone says chaos, I don't really think of like explosions and horrible things happening. It's something somewhat different. I did do a poll about what people thought about me doing more videos on subjects of paganism, particularly my approaches and perspectives on various things that I don't really see a lot of other people talk about. As always, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one.